Hi there. Happy World Hypnotism Day. And thanks for joining me today. We're going to have a great time getting organized with a hypnotist tracking form. And I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join me for this. Along the way, I hope you take some tidbits back that you can use for your clients as well. I first opened my first hypnosis center back in 2005. I had a business partner, and we really believed go big or go home. So our very first hypnosis center was a large space in a medical office that had 5 hypnosis and coaching rooms. We employed 5 hypnotists, and we ran a system because we didn't know anything about business. We joined a franchise group for hypnotists. And the system that we were running had people signing long programs. They were with us for 6 months to a year at a time. They signed up for programs that long to either to lose weight primarily or quit smoking. Now, we didn't stretch somebody out for 6 months to quit smoking, but according to that system, it was a 9-week program. The reason I tell you that is because we saw clients week after week after week for an extended period of time, and in that system, a client might see a different hypnotist than the person they saw last time, because we had 7 hypnotists on staff and the schedule was very, very full. It was a great business at the time because we had clients from the time we opened to the time we closed every hour, on the hour, coming in. And this hypnotist tracking form was a brilliant way for you to take a sheet on a client that you'd never seen before and already have some very valuable information from which you could start the discussion and finish in an hour. You had 1 hour to work with that client. So when you have clients that are coming in over and over and over, this hypnotist tracking form, if you only have 1 client, you can probably remember things about that client. But if you're seeing 20 clients in a week, by the next week, you might have a few confused. If you have a handy sheet to go to bring you right up to speed with that person, their communication cues, their motivation strategies, the change they want to make, their personal trance words, if you have all of that information in front of you, it's really easy to craft the irresistible suggestions your clients are going to need in order to have success in that session. So that's one use of this hypnotist tracking form. Life changed. My life changed, and I went from a giant office to doing hypnosis from my home and globally via Zoom. And I still use the hypnotist tracking sheet. I still do it on every client when I bring them in the first time. And even if it's a one-off, like a guy who came in wanting me to change his taste buds so that he could eat fish during Lent and like it. He had 1 session, he ate fish that night for the first time in his life and loved it and ate fish all during Lent. Now, he didn't come back for subsequent sessions to change his taste buds. But a year later, he came back to make another change. When he came back a year later, I pulled his sheet and I had already some great information on him. And that helps to build rapport, because I already knew some things about him and could speak his language, could talk about his motivations, and it brought me up to speed very quickly. So, did I tell you who I am? I'm Karen Hand. I'm a board-certified hypnotist, and I've been a hypnotist since 2005. Prior to that, I was a radio personality, and so this was a big departure, but boy, has this made my life a happy life, I got to tell you. When I became a hypnotist in 2005, I had a set of skills, and I developed those skills along the way and have done quite a bit of training since then. I now am a trainer for IACT, the International Association of Counselors and Therapists, IHF, International Hypnosis Federation, and NGH, National Guild of Hypnotists. They're all a little different. They all do things a little differently, but you'll be able to fold this information into any of those systems or beliefs or thoughts or theories of hypnosis that go with what you have learned. This is not the tracking system. This is my personal organizational tracking system, okay? And this is the way that works best for me. I like to hear my clients' words. I like to hear them talk about it. I'm very much an auditory processor. And so as I hear my clients talk about it, it gives me clues about how to help them. But if you're more of a visual processor, if you like to read things or see things written, there's no reason why you couldn't take this same form and make it a part of your intake questionnaire. Or some people send out information to their clients to fill out ahead of time. You could have them fill it out, and then you could take the time to read it before they get there, and it's all the same. So we're going to go through the handout and how to use it, and then I really encourage you to adapt what's usable for you and use it with your clients as it works best for you. So let's go ahead and look at that handout. If you pull yours, that's great, but I'll share my screen just in case so that we're all talking about the same thing here. The hypnotist tracking form is broken down into sections, as you can see. The communication cues come first. I got to say, when I first learned hypnosis, I had a great trainer. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it for years, as a matter of fact. But my trainer was an NLP-based hypnotist. So along the way, we had a lot of NLP just incorporated into our hypnosis training. And to this day, I use the magic of both NLP and hypnosis as I'm working with my clients interchangeably. I happen to think NLP is pretty much wide awake hypnosis. And some of the things we'll do here, you'll notice as you're going through the form, how you're helping your clients get into a trance state already, and a solution trance state at that. So these communication skills in NLP, the VAKOG, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. These are lead systems, the way someone processes information. And there are lots of ways to know whether someone is visual or auditory or kinesthetic. You can listen to the way they talk. You can watch the way they dress. I would encourage you to take more than one example before you make a decision or profile a client. Get an example and then ask more questions. Listen more to what they're telling you, and you will be able to then form a profile, a pretty accurate profile of your client. Visual, as an example. Barack Obama was a visual processor. One of the ways we know that is because about every other sentence the man spoke, he started with the word look. Look, I want you to see it this way. He was painting a picture. He wanted you to see it the way he saw it. And that's valuable information, because if you wanted to pitch an idea to Barack Obama, a good way to do that is let him unfold it in picture form, have him visualize what you're talking about, paint a picture for him, and it's going to be along his line of communication. So a visual processor is likely to dress in a tailored form. The look is very important to them. And so they might come in a tailored suit, or a woman in a tailored dress and stacked heels, hair done perfectly, a purse to match the outfit. There are all sorts of ways that you can clue in on a primarily visual processor. The way they dress, the way they're holding themselves, the way they are talking, the words they use. If they say, yes, I can see that clearly, likely a visual processor. Rinse priebus. I talk about these politicians, not because I want to talk politics tonight by any stretch of the imagination. It's just talk shows, political shows are great ways to do studies on people, to listen to the language, to watch their feet, to watch their body language, and to really profile somebody who's on television covertly. You're not even talking to them. You can just do these profiles. Rince Priebus, I was saying, was the head of the Republican National Committee, and then one of Trump's superiors at one point. Rince Priebus started every other sentence with the word listen. Listen to what I'm telling you. Hear what I'm trying to get across to you. Hear this input. So I don't know. I didn't have any lengthy conversations with the man, but I would say just from that, it was something I noticed, that listen was a very important item for him. Kinesthetic is more feeling. You might notice that a client walks in and they're in sweats, they're comfortable, they feel really good, they sit comfortably in a chair, maybe a little slumped. They're probably not a visual processor. They're probably more kinesthetic. It's more important to feel good than it is to look good. There's nothing wrong with any of these communication systems. This is just information that you're gathering. You're gathering information so that you can better help this client. When I say profiling, I'm not talking about anything in a pejorative sense. This is for you to gather information so that you will have these clues to better help your client by speaking their language, by talking to how they process their world. I really like to leave my impressions, my world on the outside of the office, and then open myself up to get into the trance that the client is running so that I can understand what they're doing and then help them pull out of that trance if they need to, if that makes sense. A kinesthetic language might be, I want to get a handle on this. I want to get a grasp on what we're talking about. It just doesn't feel good to me. Boy, who was the most kinesthetic president we've ever had? Bill Clinton, maybe? I feel your pain. Very good indication that he was a kinesthetic processor, and another good indication that I'm not going to go into impersonations for a living if this hypnosis thing doesn't work out, right? But at any rate, we can listen to that and really catch on to how they're processing information so that when we do a hypnosis process with them or when we're communicating with them, we can put it in the language they process the easiest. That goes in without objection. Now, olfactory, the scent of something, the sweet smell of success, of course, but olfactory I haven't seen an awful lot. Gustatory, I haven't seen an awful lot. That's the taste of something or the mouth. But I did have a tobacco chewer, a man who came to me to quit chewing tobacco. And he was one of the toughest clients I've worked with yet. Now, he did quit chewing tobacco, and he is still a non-chewer of tobacco. He did quit chewing tobacco after 3 sessions, but he was tough because everything about this man was gustatory. He talked in gustatory language. He talked about, oh, with that project, I bit off way more than I could chew on that. Or I just like to see what kind of, or he would say something like, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I was trying to come up with some of his words that he used. Leaves a bad taste in my mouth was one of the things that he talked about. I made a suggestion. He said, I don't know, that leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth as we were talking. Okay, well, that's not what we want to do. But because he was so keyed into that gustatory element, it was very interesting that he became a tobacco chewer because that was what was so important to him. Speaking his language, we were able to help him drop that habit for good, and that was a great thing. So that's that first line there. Are they visual? Are they auditory? Are they kinesthetic? And those are the 3 that you're going to run across most often. It's just information. It's just feedback from which you will move ahead. When we get down to suggestibility, a lot of people, when they're talking about suggestibility testing, will talk about compliance. We'll talk about arm catalepsy. We'll talk about producing positive or negative hallucinations. We'll talk about amnesia. We'll talk about glove anesthesia. Well, all of that is suggestibility testing, of course. And if you come from an NGH background and an Elmanian background, if you're doing the Elman induction, it's very, very much a series of steps where you're following these compliance and deeper and deeper and deeper levels of hypnosis. For my purpose, I think people are always in hypnosis, quite frankly, and I think that we can do lots of things from a light level of trance, a lot of things from a deep level of trance. I wouldn't personally want to do surgery in a light level of trance, but in a very deep level of trance, I believe you can do surgery with hypnosis, of course. So depth can be important if you're going to do something like surgery. But for the general client that I see in my office, I don't need a deep, deep, deep level of trance. In fact, I believe my client will go exactly to the depth of trance they need for the processing they need to do to make the change. So when I'm talking about suggestibility, I'm talking here about whether they're directly suggestible or inferred suggestibility. Now, directly would be they take a direct suggestion and act on it. And some people really like to be told what to do. Some people will really act on a very direct suggestion. I had one of the easiest clients I've ever worked with, a man who wanted to lose about 45 pounds. And it wasn't 50, it wasn't 40. He wanted to lose 45 pounds. And that man lost all 45 pounds, and he did everything that he was told to do. In the first week in that particular system, in the first week when we worked with weight loss, we talked about increasing the water intake. And I told him that he needed to drink about 64 ounces of water a day. He started it immediately. He got a water bottle, a 32-ounce water bottle. He filled it up twice. He had to have that every day. He complied every single day. Tell that man what to do, and he could follow the rules. He was the greatest rule follower I've ever known. So I didn't have to do a lot of fancy conversational hypnosis. Just really in a coaching format, I could tell him, and here's your next step, and he would go out and do it. That's really directly suggestible. An inferred client is one who probably prefers more options. They like to infer their own meaning on something. They like to make their own decisions generally. So an inferred client is one who, in that phone consultation where you're making the appointment, you might say, would you prefer morning or afternoon? And they might say, no, I really need evenings. Okay. Would you prefer Monday or Wednesday? No, those days don't work for me. So there will be a lot of, they're not going to take the options that are available to them. They want to come up with their own options. That might be one way to tell. Another way to tell is if they need to, they really act on their own. They want to make their own decisions about a thing. Somebody who is into making their own decisions, I'm not going to issue a lot of direct suggestions or direct commands with. With a person who is an options kind of person, let's go back to that example of drinking water. I might say something to that inferred thinker, such as, you probably already are aware that adding water, drinking a lot of water, is one way to really flush your system and help you lose weight. And I don't know if you'll choose to get a new water bottle and fill it up a couple of times a day, or if you will drink a big glass of water before every meal, or if you will increase your water intake gradually until you've reached about 64 ounces of water a day. But you know what's going to work for you, and I know that you'll make the best decision for yourself on how to increase that water intake to speed up your weight loss. So that was a more lengthy suggestion about the same water issue, that with one client, they'll just do it, and with another client, they want to make their own decisions. Now, of course, you already noticed that there were really no options in that lengthy suggestion I gave. It was drink more water. And I don't care how they do it, if they're going to do it gradually, or if they're going to do it before each meal, or if they're going to do it this way. But it allows them to latch on to do their own search in their head and go, oh, this is how I could do that. As I'm giving them the options, they are choosing the system that's going to work best for them, and they don't feel like they are tied down or commanded to follow something. I like to learn that about my clients for every step of the way. I really build in a lot of covert suggestibility tests. I don't do with my clients a lot of arm lock or things like that, unless, of course, the taste buds guy, the guy who wanted to like fish, he called me and said, can you change taste buds? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I saw a stage hypnotist the other night, and he changed taste buds. The people on stage had lollipops, and he changed their taste buds so they tasted like poo, and they all spit it out. So I wonder if you could do that. Well, I was a little confused and said, you want all your food to taste like poo? And the guy said, no, I want to like fish. So if you can help me like fish, I want to do that. Now, in listening to this man, one of the things I knew about him right away is that he believed in the magic of hypnosis. And because he saw a stage show, and then I told him, yes, I can do that. And he said, okay, let's do that with me. I also knew when he came into my office that some of those things, like arm catalepsy, you can't bend your arm, and sticking your eyes closed, would be very great convincers for this man because they're a little stage showy. And sticking his fingers together, he loved that. I taught him how to do that, and he went home and taught his whole family. But that kind of thing was what this particular client needed so that he could buy into, yes, I can be hypnotized. Yes, I have been hypnotized. This is great. Now let's go. And he did text me that night from a fish joint and said that he had eaten his first tilapia and loved it. So, you know, that you've got to know where your client is. Begin where they are and move them along from there. So direct and inferred and suggestibility, all of that stuff is good stuff to use, and use it when it's appropriate with your clients. I was talking about some of the covert testing that I do. If I have an email encounter with a client about making an appointment, and we decide on a time that we're going to speak about whether hypnosis is appropriate for them, and let's say it's 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning, they have to call me. I don't call them. I tell them, you'll call me at 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning. Here is the time. And then I wait and I look for clues. Do they call early? Do they call right on time? Do they call 10 minutes late, sometime in that 10 o'clock hour? It gives me some clues about how they process time or how they process direct suggestion, right? The person who's going to process direct suggestion pretty easily is probably going to call right on time. Another covert suggestibility thing that I have going in, since I work out of my home, I can see when somebody pulls up and they're ready for their appointment. I can see if they pull up 10 minutes early. I can see if they wait in their car until the exact time and then come in for their appointment. Or, of course, I know if they're 10 minutes late or 3 or 4 minutes late or whatever it is. All of that is feedback. All of that is information to help me learn and know about this client and what we need to work on, how we need to help them reach the goals that they want to reach. Sometimes it doesn't have as much to do with the problem they're having as it does with some of the other strategies they have going on in their life. I also have this covert testing in my physical office. In my physical office, I have a table with a couple of chairs sitting there at the table, and I have another chair off to the side. It's a freestanding straight back chair. And then, of course, I have a recliner and my chair that sits next to the recliner. I always send the client into my office first, and I tell them I will follow them. I will follow right behind them. And then I get my iPad and I get my water bottle. Boy, what a good suggestion that is. Thank you. I grab my water bottle and then I follow him behind them. And I do that on purpose because I want to see what they do when they're in the office. Sometimes I go in and the client has already plopped down on the recliner and they're waiting to get fixed. And then I do a gentle way of teaching them that in this office, they follow what I suggest. They do what I actually recommend that they do. So this is an old stage hypnosis trick. Sometimes if you watch a stage show, they'll move people from chair to chair. All they're doing is gently teaching the group that you have to follow their suggestions. You have to follow their ideas on what to do. So if a client is in the recliner, I'll say something like, oh yeah, everybody loves that chair. Everybody wants that one first. But I need you to sit over here and fill out some paperwork for me first. And then I move them over to the table and they fill out the paperwork. Now, honestly, the paperwork is on a clipboard. I could just as easily move it, hand it to them and let them fill it out there in the recliner, but that's not the point of the exercise. The point of the exercise is to gently let them know that I'm the one in charge here. Not authoritarian, but we're doing this way. I like to watch if they sometimes the client will put their purse or their coat on the freestanding chair and then kind of wait. What do we do next? That gives me a different feedback. And sometimes the client stands stoically until I arrive, waiting for me to tell them exactly what to do next. You can sit here, you can put your coat there. There you go with a very directly suggestible client. Wouldn't you think? Very compliant for sure. So I can circle direct or inferred so that the next time I work with them, whether it's next week or in a year from now, I've got some great information about how to already start communicating with this client. So now let's look for that motivation for change. We're looking for their strategies here, the strategies that they just naturally use in their life to propel them forward. So we start there with that toward or away strategy. Are they moving toward a goal or moving away from pain? It's important to know that because moving toward a goal is a great motivator for change. If you've got a client who says, oh yes, I want to lose this weight so that I can hear those wonderful compliments at the reunion. Well, they already have an idea in their mind what they're going to hear as they make these changes. Auditory processor. And we're going to help them in giving them suggestions about hearing those compliments, hearing those wonderful, the praise and that kind of thing. That's going to, we've circled A in that case for auditory, and we've circled toward because they're moving toward a goal. That is also, I want to make a little note on the side, that's also going to clue me in that they have a very specific goal to get to, and after the reunion or whatever that goal point is, we might need some more sessions after that because they've reached their goal, but without their motivator there, they could become a yo-yo dieter. They could gain all of that weight back because that motivation is not there anymore. So another few sessions might be needed at that point to reestablish a new motivation. I was in a weight loss program at one point and I got back into my favorite jeans. And when I went in and announced that, the person running the session said, well, you need a new favorite pair of jeans. In other words, I'd met that goal. If I wanted to keep losing weight, I needed to have a new goal ahead of me. If they don't say something about a reunion or a place where they're going toward their goal, they may say something like, I just don't want to be fat anymore. Well, now they're moving away from pain. And that's a tricky one. That one can require some accountability to keep them motivated, or you want to steer them toward a goal. The problematic part about moving away from pain is the moment if they're a weight loss client, is the moment they lose 5 or 10 pounds and they're feeling better and their clothes are fitting better, they've moved away from that pain. They've already been successful, but they haven't reached a goal yet. So you either want to turn them toward a goal or you have to have some continuing accountability to keep them moving further and further and further away from their pain. An internal or external strategy, if your client says something to you like, I really hate working alone. I do so much better when I work in a group or in a partnership. Well, that will indicate to you that maybe there's some external motivators going on. They really need the accountability with somebody else. Some people will say, how do you know that this is going to be right for you? How do you know how did you know that was the right house to pick? Oh man, I could just tell it. I just knew. I saw it and I just knew. How do you know you've done a good job at something? I know, I can always tell. That's an internal motivator. And they are probably the easiest clients to work with when they've got that internal motivation going on. If not, you might have to do some more work to help them find those internal resources for motivation. This global or specific, do they see things as in their control or not? As an example, I've had clients who say, oh, you can't pass a dessert table without taking some samples. Well, that's putting something out there globally. That's making it an issue that is just everybody has that issue and there's nothing they can do about it. I asked them to change that statement and say, I can't pass a dessert table without taking something. Because if it's a global issue, then there's nothing that can be done about it. It's just everybody's problem. It's just the way life is. But if you start taking it on as your own problem, then you can own it and then you can make some change. There is nothing that any of us can do about the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. We just can't. If I had control about that, I might switch it around once in a while, but we can't do anything about that. That's a global condition of our world. But when we're talking about change, we want to own our conditions. The more we own, the easier it is to make the change, the more control that we already have. Specific is what we want. We want them to get to a very specific area. That we want to big and vague. We want it specified. And in a moment, we're going to talk about the outcome specification questions, where I can show you how to really specify what we're getting to. Once or several times, do they need to hear something once, or do they need to hear it a bunch of different times before an idea latches on with them? If a client brings up, oh yes, I exercise, I got a Peloton and I'm working it every day. I think that's what that exercise machine is called. And I might say, did you decide to buy that after seeing the infomercial once, or did you see it a bunch? If they say, no, man, I saw it, that was the thing for me, I bought it. Well, they're probably one suggestion is going to do it for them. On the other hand, if somebody says, no, I saw that darn commercial for months, and finally I said, okay, I think I'm going to get one. Well, you might want to do some direct drive or some compounding suggestions with them, or repeat something 2 or 3 times throughout the process, because they need several encounters before it actually gels with them. An independent or team player we've talked about as well, whether they are internal or external. If they are really a team player, they don't have a lot of internal motivation, you might want to help them find accountability partners. Weight Watchers is great for someone who is a team player, because they can go in, they have meetings, they've got camaraderie, they've got other people they're working with, and everybody's going toward the same goal. So there's nothing wrong with having somebody join a Nutrisystem or a Weight Watcher, or have some other kind of accountability partner, an accountability fitness partner, or accountability learning partner, whatever they're working on. If they work better with a partner, you might want to point out that strategy and help them work within that strategy to make reaching their goals even easier. Okay, that's a lot of information. Let's stop that for just 1 second. And I want to open this up and see if there are any questions, first of all, before we go any further. And I also want to check and see if we have, oh, we have a volunteer. Amy's going to do it. Thank you, Amy, very much. I appreciate that. In a moment, I'll ask you to unmute yourself, and then we'll work on that outcome. You've got an easy change you want to make, right? All right. So are there any other questions? If you have questions, you can type them in real quick, or you can raise your hand. I've got you where I can see many of you here, and you can ask. If not, we're going to plow on through. I want to tell you that if you have any questions at all after this session, you can always email me, and I'll be delighted to answer them. You can text me, you can call me. I make myself pretty available, especially to hypnotists, because we all want to help each other really improve our profession, do we not? So the next segment in that handout is a series of questions. How do you get your evidence? What resources do you have? What change do you want to make? What's stopping you? Those are some interesting pieces of information for us to know so that we can help our client progress. And the easiest way I know of to get that information is to use a simple outcome specification questionnaire. And I didn't send that to you as a handout, but I will send it to you when I send you, this is recorded, and I'm going to send all of you the recording of this session in a day or so, as soon as I get it edited and out to you. But I'll also send you these outcome specification questions in case you've never had NLP or you've never used these before. It's a great way to get the client to narrow down their focus so that they're going to a specific place. It's also a great way to really run through the meta pattern of change. The meta pattern of change is associate into an issue. You're going to ask them what it is their problem is or they want to change. Dissociate from the problem state, because it's very hard to come up with a solution when you're in the problem state. Associate then into a solution state, and then apply that solution to the problem. So there's your meta pattern of change. And you'll notice as we're going through these outcome specification questions, how just asking the questions creates a wonderful trance and moves to a solution state. So Amy, how does that sound to you? Unmute yourself. I just unmuted you.
Yes, okay.
Great.
That sounds good.
Thank you so much for joining me on this. I really appreciate your participation. And we're going to go down these list of questions. Now, we're not trying to improve your relationship with your mother or something hard like that, right? We're going to do something simple like lose 50 pounds or get organized or something like that.
Get organized would be kind of my feeling overwhelmed, I guess. And so
what do you want to change about that, Amy?
I'd like to be able to block distractions and focus on one thing at a time instead of multiple things at a time.
Block distractions and focus on one thing at a time. Tell me what happens now. How are you doing things now?
Well, I have a lot of interests, so things are coming up, and it's like, and I'm also a fairly new hypnotist, so I'm very eager to learn all these different things, and I just need to. I feel like I need to pick one thing.
So, when you say pick one thing, do you mean you want to focus on hypnosis, or you want to focus on your hobbies, or you want to focus on your kids? Tell me what that means. You want to pick one thing.
Well, I'm trying to get my business going, kind of restarting for the new year. I need to have time to plan a couple, workshops and where I'm going with that. But I'm also feeling like I do need to look into some of my interests, like hobbies. So it is kind of a balance issue.
So now I just heard you say you want more balance.
Yes.
What makes you feel overwhelmed?
I think being new and wanting to help people, but also feeling, like I don't have all of these things memorized. And
would it help you at all if I let you know that you've been a hypnotist your whole life?
Yes, that helps.
You've been hypnotizing people and persuading people your whole life. Would it help if I told you that your parents are hypnotists?
Yes, and I believe that one.
Yes, because they taught us all the things that we learned. They hypnotized us to do it their way, basically. So if your mom and dad can do it, do you think maybe you can do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be. And since you've been doing it your whole life, it might be easier than you'd ever imagined, right?
It's making sense. Yeah.
So specifically, when you get a handle, when you're really feeling this difference, when you're not as overwhelmed, when you have more balance, what is that? In other words, what do you want instead of the overwhelm?
It's calm, being calm.
Good. And when you're calm, what specifically will that do for you?
It's a relaxing place to be.
Good. How will you know that you're relaxed and balanced? What evidence do you have? How will you know?
I won't have a bunch of thoughts to kind of keep track of, not ruminating, but just random ideas.
And if you don't have a bunch of thoughts, what do you have?
A place of serenity and calm.
Where do you want that serenity and calm, and with whom?
Do you mean like in a body part or?
Sure, let's start with the body part.
I guess in my chest area, I feel tense there. And with my husband, I mean, he is pretty good at relaxing and being calm and relaxed.
And you want to be able to join him in that, is that correct? He's pretty good at turning it off, I hear you say.
Yes.
Right. And so when you have this calm feeling, you'll experience it with your husband and you'll experience it in other things that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I want to know, Amy, how you know when you're calm.
I think it's the behavior, the interaction. I'm imagining if client comes in, I'm not like, I want to be attentive, but not like so super focused that I'm trying to figure out what my next, what I can contribute, what my next thing to say should be. Being relaxed is just kind of knowing, I guess, and comfortable.
And I wonder if it would help at all if I were to mention to you that you don't need to have any answers. You don't even need to know what to say next. Your job is really to listen to what they say and follow up on that.
Okay, that helps.
so as you're not focusing on inside, what am I going to say next, instead focusing on what your client is saying and then follow up on that, what will that do for you?
It brings a sense of relief.
How do you know?
I'm already feeling a little relieved.
How do you know?
I think I will know because all the thoughts aren't bouncing around in my head.
And so if the thoughts are not bouncing around in your head, I'm curious about what the thoughts are doing.
Focusing on the moments and feeling more patient.
So right here and right now, in this particular moment, are you feeling that calm?
Yeah, because we're having a conversation and you're helping me.
And do conversations calm you?
Yeah.
I wonder if you can notice now that when you're involved with a client, you're having a conversation.
Yeah.
A give and take conversation. You are gathering feedback. You're gathering information so that you can help them move forward. I'd also like to just stop for a moment, Amy, and point out that when I've asked you what you want, you've told me a lot about what you don't want.
Okay.
You're moving away from the pain of cluttered thoughts and all of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're going toward this calm, I'd like you to feel it in your body right now. Oh, you just did a beautiful thing. I just saw you kind of take that breath and focus on it. Do that for me again. And if you do that, how does that feel?
Feels very nice.
Tell me more about that. How do you know it feels nice?
Less tension in my body.
What are your thoughts doing right now?
I'm just listening to you. So I'm not, it's like they're not motivating me.
so everything is just calm right now.
Yeah.
Please do this favor for me. Take in a nice deep breath, and you might even call it the in breath and the out breath. And I want you to do that 2 or 3 times and just notice where you feel calm and notice what calm feels like. I'm going to ask you to breathe louder because I don't see you. say something, Amy, so we can get you back on the screen so I can see you. Front and center.
I feel it in my abdomen area, and my chest is lightening up.
Oh, and what are you feeling in your abdomen area?
Just, it's like a tingling, opening up sensation.
Is that a good sensation?
Yeah.
Notice that cue. Notice that feeling that you're getting, that everything's okay and it's kind of calm, as if that's a good feeling for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd like to have this calm feeling with clients. Is that correct?
Yes.
How will this affect your clients when you're just having a conversation with them and you're feeling this calm?
I think it will allow them to not be suspicious of, I feel like when people are tense, clients can be a little suspicious, maybe like, how are you going to be able to help me?
So you already know one of the principles of hypnosis, obviously, because you just told us. When you want your client to do something, to go into a trance, as an example, you go first.
I guess I haven't thought of that. Yeah.
So if I wanted you to relax and I were to say to you, Amy, relax now. I want you to really relax. I want you to relax. You probably wouldn't. You'd probably go running out of my office and get me away from this crazy woman. So if I want you to relax, I'm not going to go into a tension trance. I'm going to say, Amy, wonder what happens if we just stop for a moment and take a breath, right? And then I'm in the calm trance, and it allows you to go into that calmer trance as well. Don't you imagine that that will work equally well as you're working with your clients?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And before they ever get there, I wonder what would happen if you go into that calm trance first, before they ever walk into your office, knowing that all you really have to do is listen, and it will all come to you.
Yeah. So just relying on my intuition and my
What would happen
capability,
if you relied on your intuition? What would happen?
I think it will work.
How would that affect other aspects of your life? How would it affect your business, your relationship with your husband?
Well, I could spend less time feeling anxious about, I could feel more time feeling relaxed and not kind of expending energy on some things that maybe aren't productive use of time.
What stops you from doing that already?
I think a little bit of fear
About
just being seen as kind of an expert or somebody who can help.
I'd like you to do one thing for me now. I'd like you to close your eyes for just a second, Amy. And I want you to imagine that sitting right in front of you, there is a slightly more confident, slightly more calm you. And look at that you in front of you, that slightly more calm, slightly more confident person. And notice what you notice. Notice her breathing. Notice the look on her face. When you are in touch with that, step into that you. And tell me what you notice now.
I noticed a change in breathing and a quiet mind.
Good. Now notice right in front of you an even more confident, an even calmer you, with more expertise, with more self-awareness, self-belief in your own intuition and ability to carry on a conversation or help a friend or help a client. Notice your breathing. Notice how that slightly more confident you is sitting or standing, the body. And tell me what you notice now.
Feel more of a sense of joy in what I'm doing.
Step into that. Step into that you. And I want you to know that you can do this little exercise anytime you want. And wouldn't it be handy to do that exercise before you saw every client? A lot of hypnotists do centering exercises. And if confidence or trusting your own instincts is an issue for you, I wonder if before you saw a client, you would just do this exercise as self-hypnosis with yourself, where you step into that slightly more confident you. Once, twice, 16 times. How many times did you have to step into that slightly more confident you before you owned it?
I wonder. Probably not fair. Not that 16. Not 16.
Okay. How many times do you think?
Maybe 2 or 3.
Good. So would it be okay with you? You can open your eyes now. Would it be okay with you if you practice that a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Every day, so that you just step into 2 or 3 of those more confident yous, or happier yous, more joy, whatever you want to create there in front of you.
Yeah.
And step into it.
I think that will be a good practice.
I'm sorry.
And I think it can help a lot of different areas in my life as well.
So what resources do you already have to calm your mind and trust yourself?
Well, I know about the breathing. I know how to breathe and how that changes. I know how to envision. So thank you for helping me like kind of aim it towards a confident me.
Good. Okay.
I can definitely do that.
Do you need additional resources? Do you need anything else to help you accomplish that?
I guess I'm a little worried about remembering to do that. So maybe like a trigger, something that can trigger me to remind myself to do that.
I wonder what that might be. What would you use as a trigger?
Maybe I could use, for now, I could use an alarm on my phone or something.
Perfect. How often would you set that alarm?
For now, maybe once every 2 hours.
As your practice, you mean?
Yeah.
Practice it every 2 hours just to get in the habit of it? That's great. So every 2 hours. For how long do you want to do that every 2 hours?
You like how long? Like how long to practice that?
Well, I mean, how many days or how many weeks or do you want it to be infinite?
Maybe a week would be a good goal, because then I can reevaluate and see if it's already like set in and I don't need to practice.
Or you don't need to remind yourself. You might just do the practice all the time. You know, you might, after you set the alarm and remind yourself, you might enjoy this so much that every time you find yourself waiting in a doctor's office or waiting in a grocery store line or waiting for the coffee to drip into the cup, you might stand there and do that exercise just because you can and because it feels so good to feel so good.
Yeah.
So would you agree with me then that you're going to set an alarm on your phone and you're going to practice that confidence building technique every couple of hours for at least a week?
Yes.
Excellent. Are there any other ways to get there, to that confident, calm, not overwhelmed you?
I guess I can't think of any, but I'm open to suggestion.
Okay. We can work on some of those. And is there any other way to get there other than setting this alarm, remembering to do your practice? Is there any other way to be confident in your abilities?
I think that just reminding myself that I do have that intuition. And I like what you said about my parents being hypnotists, and if they can do it, I can.
Remind yourself of that often, if you will. So now, Amy, tell me how you feel.
I feel good.
Was there any hypnosis involved there?
Yes.
That was the right answer. I heard a question mark there, but yes, that was the right answer.
Yes, because I believe we're always in hypnosis, like you. I think we are.
I think we are. And as you went into your search to find the answers to those bizarre kind of questions, you were solving your own problem. Now let's look at what happened with Amy, if you don't mind, and what we discovered. So what I would mark on my hypnotist tracking sheet, my guess is that Amy is visual. She can certainly make pictures, but she's more kinesthetic, wants to really grasp the concept, wants to really feel it someplace inside it, wants to feel good about it. Would that be correct, Amy?
Yes.
And I'm not sure if she's direct or inferred at this point. She was really latching on to a lot of the things I was mentioning. So giving some suggestions or some little self-hypnosis techniques or tasks to complete might be a real good element for Amy, but I wouldn't have been able to yet determine whether you are absolutely inferred or direct. I don't mind giving even my direct clients some options once in a while. Amy is obviously moving away from pain. That makes sense? You're not moving toward a goal, you're moving away from pain. So as I'm talking to you about how we're going to go through this building your confidence, I'm going to be aware that we're also going to have to move you in the direction of a goal as opposed to just moving away from pain. Okay? To really stop that overwhelm and to really get you on past that. probably, well, we didn't talk about your personal trance words yet. I didn't have to ever move you out of that. But occasionally a client will get stuck and say, I just don't know. Here's a great way to pull a personal trance word. If I had needed to veer off, I would do this in normal conversation anyway, but I wouldn't ask all of these questions. Let me just ask you, Amy, what are your hobbies? You talked about you having some other hobbies.
Well, I like photography. I'm a very visual person. I like film. Um,
I just changed my circle to V. I'm going to circle V and K there. Okay.
Yeah, because I think they're balanced.
Yeah. For you, it seems like it's very balanced, right? So I'm not necessarily going to talk to you about what people might say to you, but I'm going to talk to you about how you feel about something and the pictures that you can make. So in photography, what is it about photography that really interests you, that really calls you?
I like being able to interpret the story. And yeah, it really, photos trigger my imagination.
Good. How do you know you've got a good photo?
There's a couple of things. Like I just feel it. There you go. I feel it.
Good. And how do you know that you've done a good job with either a client or taking pictures? How do you just know that you've done a good job?
I think I've sensed that as well. I feel it. I feel it with a client. I feel if their face is smiling or if they've, they feel a little lighter or more relaxed. I think that I've done a good job. And then with photos, I just feel it.
In a job, any job that you do, Amy, what has to be in that job for it to be a good job for you? Be enjoyable.
A sense of community or feeling comfortable.
Good. What has to be in a friendship for it to be worthwhile?
Definitely comfort. And yeah, I guess I feel a lot of that when I'm with somebody. I notice when I'm not with a friend, then that's when maybe some negative things can come into my mind. So being very present and in relation to people, I think, is helpful as well.
Excellent. So in working, Amy, toward reducing the overwhelm and increasing your confidence, I wonder if you're willing to notice that you can be very present with a client, and that's all it really takes, is to be present. Be there for them and hold the space for them to open up and develop their own solutions. It's comfortable to have a conversation, and you're good at it. And so you can be comfortable sitting there knowing that your client is going to have all of the resources inside of them to make a change, and you're going to listen for their resources and help them get there. As a matter of fact, you can interpret their story because you've got really good instincts. And you've got a great imagination. You can help your clients imagine the success that they're going to have. And it will feel so good as you connect them with a community of change, a change that they're going to make within themselves with your help. You're going to help them feel good. And it's going to be comfortable because, after all, it is just a conversation and you're gathering information as you would with a friend. How does that feel to you, Amy?
I really like that. That's like the cherry on top, because I'm not in an altered trance, and you've just helped me with a tremendous amount of stuff by what you just said there.
So these are the personal trance words and their importance. I didn't pay as much attention to what Amy was telling me about the job that she wanted or about the friendships she had, but what I wrote down were community. In a job, she likes it to be a community effort, and it's comfortable. And in a good job, she just feels it. So I would also indicate that she's internally motivated. She likes, in a friendship, comfort and presence. It's important for them to be present. And in her hobby, she likes to interpret the story and she likes to use her imagination. So when I just fed back to her what we were making steps toward, I just used all of those personal trance words and what I was saying. And to her, I may not have been saying anything. I don't know. But to Amy, I was saying something really important. And it's only important what the client feels and how they process it and interpret it. And the way that went in to make her feel comfortable and at ease without any resistance was using her own words in meeting the goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so on the bottom of your sheet, I've got need a job, good job, friendship, hobbies, relaxing place. Any place along the line, you can break a state by saying, let's get off of that for a minute. That's too heavy. Tell me about your first job. What was your very first job? And as they start telling you about it, you can say, and of the jobs you've had in your life, what's been the most enjoyable? Now, what made that job enjoyable for you? And whatever they're going to tell you are going to be some of their personal trance words, their inner values that will come out without any resistance as they're answering your questions. How do you know you've done a good job? Oh, when my boss tells me it's right, then I know. Well, then you know they're externally motivated and you know that hearing compliments is going to be important for them. How do you know you've done a good job at something? Whatever they answer. You don't need the story that goes with the answer. You just need their value words. And when you pepper your hypnosis process with their value words, you're good to go. Now, what Amy and I just did is a part of the intake I do with my clients. In having conversation, we're looking for the changes they want to make. We're looking for when it's going to happen. We're getting it down to specifics. And then I have I have my intake form all filled out and I know exactly what script I'm going to feed back to them. I'm not going to use a script. I'm going to use their words. I'm going to use their motivation strategies, and I'm going to help them get to the change they make. From all the information I've gathered, I can pretty much tell if it's going to be 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions. I can talk to them about the things that we need to do. I'll say, Amy, with you, it would be good for you to start looking for a way to point yourself in the direction of where you want to go rather than what you want to get away from. Mm-hmm. Now I live in Chicago, Milwaukee is north of us. If I am trying to get to Milwaukee by seeing Chicago in my rearview mirror, by watching myself get away from Chicago, it could take me years to get to Milwaukee because I could be driving south. Chicago is in my rearview mirror if I'm going south, just as much as it is if I'm going north. So moving away from something does not mean I'm going to go anyplace. So in this case, I might want to help you find a way to get some motivation to go someplace, to set your goals in front of you. Maybe compartmentalize. But that's how we work with that kind of thing. And does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you very much for participating, Amy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll open this up and ask if there are any other questions. You can type them in the chat room or you can just open your mic and ask. I do want to share with you some things that are coming up. I've promised you I'd be out of here at 8 o'clock, and I told Tim that I would get him to bed early, but I just want to, it's only going to take another couple of minutes, Tim, I promise you. I want to tell you some great things that are coming up. On January 8th, Elvis's birthday, by the way. You don't need to know that. But on January 8th will be the free virtual chapter meeting that I co-host with my friend Michael Watson, who joined us here tonight. And I'm so thrilled to have you here, Michael. Michael and I do the virtual chapter meeting every second Tuesday of every month. And this particular month, we have Sean Carson on as our guest. We bring different hypnotists from all over the world into the virtual chapter meeting. And Sean's going to be talking about something we saw him do at the Mid-America Hypnosis Conference last October, using tarot for coaching or with your hypnosis clients. It was absolutely fascinating. And I've even done a couple of study groups so far to use tarot. I learned a lot from my friend Funda Khan right there. That's January 8th. Join us there. And if you are not a member of the virtual chapter and want to be, if you're on Facebook, just type virtual chapter in the search engine and you'll join us. And all of our back events are posted there and all of our future events will be posted there as well. I'm going to send you links to this when I send you the recording too. On January 12th, it's the Financial Freedom Virtual Hypno Summit. There will be about a dozen presenters talking about the business of doing hypnosis as a business. And this is unbelievable. It's a full day on January 12th. It's a full day of presentations on doing the business of hypnosis. And it's just $39 for the whole day. And for all of these incredible presenters like Kelly T. Woods and Roger Moore and Jason Lynette, and you got to join us. It's going to be great. I'm going to be doing nonverbal suggestions, minding your business before and around the words. So the nonverbal suggestions you're giving to your clients, or like the covert testing I'm doing, the nonverbal suggestions that you give that are not with the words. Your words come way after the client sees you or makes a decision. They say that a decision is made in the first 3 seconds of an encounter. So you want to make sure that your nonverbal suggestions are very clear and specific. In March, February 25th through 27th is the HPTI Winter Hypnosis Conference in Vegas. That is all clinical hypnosis. And at that conference, I'm going to be doing a very deep dive into the outcome specification technique that we just did here. In March, Michael Watson and I begin a training for IACT and IMDHA, hypnosis certification training, and we do a really interesting training. Michael's in Orlando, I'm in Chicago. We start with a first weekend in our respective cities. We do a live classroom weekend with our students where we teach suggestibility testing and how to hypnotize somebody and building rapport and that kind of thing. And then for 13 weeks, we combine our 2 classes online and do Zoom sessions and do 13 weeks of Zoom training online, so you can train from any place in the world. We follow that up with a 2-week advanced training session with our students in our respective cities. So if you're interested in certification, or you know someone who is, it's a great certification program. If you're just interested in upgrading your skills, you can just do the Zoom portion of the training and you get 2 trainers for the price of 1, and it's a pretty cool deal. March 30th and 31st, the legendary Bob Burns comes to Chicago. I'm bringing him to Chicago to discuss his SWAN technique, which is sort of a parts therapy technique. He's doing the full weekend workshop on those 2 days where he'll teach his intake and the way that he works with clients. He's a great guy, and he's got a very cute little Scottish accent to boot. He's coming to Chicago March 30th and 31st. May 17th, 18th, and 19th is the IACT IMDHA Expo in Daytona Beach, Florida. Woohoo! I'll be teaching my reminding system for positive change there, among other things. And of course, in August, it'll be Hypno Thoughts in Vegas and Mid-America Hypnosis Conference right here in Chicago in October. I'll put all of that stuff in the email that I sent you with the recording and give you links to that if you're interested. Of course, no pressure, just want you to know about it if you'd like to. You can get all of this information too on my website. KarenHand.com is my website. You can email me at Karen@KarenHand.com. Now, I've used this tracking sheet that we talked about today when I had a lot of clients that I saw hour after hour. I've used this also when I've had a client that I saw once and then they'd come back 3 years later, and I've got information on them. So it's a very handy way to keep track of who you're seeing and really cut to the chase as quickly as possible. It's very helpful when you've got a guy who quits biting his nails and then 3 years later comes back to work on something else. You already know his strategies and the way he does things. Use any part of this that works for you in any fashion that works for you. And I just want to say thank you very much for joining me today. What a great way to spend World Hypnotism Day. And it was a joy to spend it with you. I'm Karen Hand.